My name is Alan, 48, mechanic from Nebraska. I married a woman I trusted with my life. For 2 years, she took solo trips for her mental health. I packed her bags, smiled at the door. Until one night, I followed her. What I saw wasn't a man. It was her best friend. And that's when...
My name's Daniel Marsh. I'm 52 years old and I've been married to Erin for 25 of them. We bought this house in the fall of 2002. A quiet little 2-story colonial on the edge of town. Maple trees in the yard, a wraparound porch, a kitchen that Erin insisted be open concept even though she never liked to cook. I built the pantry shelves myself. Sanded every plank, fit every hinge. I thought I was building a home. We didn't have kids. Not for lack of trying. Erin had 2 miscarriages in our early years, and after the second, she stopped bringing it up. I followed her lead. That's how we worked. She set the tone, I kept it steady. I worked in logistics for a freight company. Long hours, short nights, the kind of job that breaks your back before your spirit. Hers was in event management, though it always sounded vague to me. A lot of late nights, business dinners, and networking weekends. I never questioned it. I wanted to be the kind of husband who trusted first and always. I didn't realize I was being polite to my own erasure. It started small, as it usually does. Subtle absences. A smile that felt too practiced. A laugh that didn't include me. I'd wake up and she'd already be out of bed in the shower like she was cleaning off something before I could see it. She started locking her phone. That should have been my first sign. But I made excuses. I always did. Maybe it was work policy. Maybe she was planning a surprise. You don't assume betrayal when you've built your whole life on loyalty. But something cracked last March. She came home from another weekend in Phoenix. I was folding laundry in the living room when she dropped her overnight bag by the door and kissed me too quickly. Her phone buzzed twice in her coat pocket. She froze for a second, not long, but enough. I handed her the coat. She smiled, said thanks, then left the room. When I checked the pockets the next morning, the phone was gone. By June, I'd stopped asking questions. Not because I didn't want answers, but because I already knew them. You can feel it in the way someone avoids your eyes. In the way they start speaking in half-truths and calendar lies. So I made a choice. I stopped trying to win her back and started learning the shape of the deception. I didn't snoop at first. I still had pride. But one night, after she fell asleep on the couch, I checked the trash folder in our shared iPad, the one we both used for Netflix. That's where I found it. A deleted message. Just one. From someone named R. Next weekend. Same place. I'll bring the wine. You bring that smile. My hands went cold. I stared at that sentence for 10 minutes like it might change if I looked long enough. But it didn't. It was there. Simple. Intimate. Clear. And that's when something inside me shifted. This wasn't just some temporary lapse or late-life boredom. It was a pattern. A routine. She had someone else. A full life outside these walls. A second existence layered on top of our marriage like paint on rotting wood. And I had lived under it for years. So I started planning. Not a confrontation. Not yet. A strategy. I wanted to know everything before I made a single move. I needed dates, places, names. I needed to understand who this man was and why she chose him. What he gave her that I apparently didn't. Or maybe what lies he told her that made her believe her secret would never come to light. But more than that, I needed time. Time to build a world where she thought I still loved her, still trusted her, still believed in every lie that fell from her mouth like honey. Because only then would it matter when I took it all apart. From the inside. It's amazing how predictable people are when they think they're clever. Erin was careful, sure, knew passcodes, wiped messages, burner emails, but she wasn't expecting her own husband to be the one tracing her footsteps. I waited a week after the message on the iPad before I did anything. I needed to be calm. Cold. This wasn't going to be a shouting match in the kitchen. I wanted her to walk into her own guilt willingly, unknowingly, as if it were a warm bath she prepared for herself. I started with receipts. She always left them in her car console. Starbucks, boutique hotel bars, 2 charges at an Italian restaurant in Charleston where she was supposedly hosting a networking mixer. Everything was billed to her personal card. I matched every charge to a date and began building a timeline. I wasn't trying to catch her once. I wanted to prove it had been happening for years. Then came the trickier part, finding him. The mysterious R. I created a new email address and pretended to be a prospective client of her company. Asked for event consultation quotes. She responded with a form email and a Calendly link. When I clicked it, I saw her full schedule with initials and private codes I hadn't seen in years. R/WL. Every third Friday. Repeating. For nearly 2 years. WL turned out to be Wells Landing. A bed and breakfast 2 towns over. Quiet, private, a bit run down, the kind of place that doesn't ask questions. I booked a room for myself under a different name on the next date she had marked. The plan was to watch. Just observe. But watching wasn't enough. That Friday, I saw her drive in. She wore the coat I bought her last Christmas. Lipstick a shade darker than she usually wore around me. She had a small duffel bag and a bottle of red wine. When he got out of his truck, tan, graying, probably a few years younger than me, she hugged him like she'd waited a lifetime. It didn't hurt the way I thought it would. I didn't feel heartbroken or betrayed. I felt clean. Like the scales had fallen off my eyes and I could finally see her without the stories I told myself for years. She kissed him in the parking lot. He pressed her against the hood of his truck. I took pictures. Not for the lawyers. For me. Proof that I wasn't crazy. That the hollow I'd been feeling for so long wasn't depression or paranoia. It was reality knocking. And I had finally opened the damn door. That night I didn't sleep. I didn't drink. I sat in my darkened den and thought about the kind of man I'd let myself become. Quiet, careful, always understanding. And for what? So she could build a life with someone else while sharing my bed? No more. I decided I wouldn't confront her. That would give her power, a choice, a reaction. I didn't want a scene. I wanted justice. So I planned a trap. First, I bought a burner phone. I started sending wrong number texts to her phone from a fake name. Flirtatious, indirect, just enough to make her paranoid. Then, I started being extra kind. Flowers, dinner, surprises. I made her believe I was falling back in love with her. And the guilt, oh, the guilt, started to bleed through. She smiled too hard, apologized for nothing, kept asking if I was okay. I smiled every time. Better than I've been in years. She didn't realize I meant it. Then I played my final card. I told her I wanted to take a vacation together. Just us. Reconnect. She hesitated, of course she did. Probably had a rendezvous already scheduled. But I pushed gently and eventually she agreed. A cabin in Vermont? Quiet and remote. I told her I needed time to get away from work. That I missed us. And here's where it all started coming together. Because while we were away, I had a locksmith change the locks at home. I had a moving company pack up her things. Everything she'd brought into our life that wasn't paid for by me. I canceled her credit card on the joint account. Froze the others. Transferred all funds legally into a trust in my name. By the time we came back, she had nowhere to go. She opened the door and walked into a cold house. No furniture. No pictures. Just a legal letter on the kitchen counter and the key to a motel room I paid for, one night only. The letter said simply, I know everything. I always did. You played your game. Now I've played mine. We're done. No yelling. No begging. Just silence. And I walked out. Because sometimes the deepest cuts aren't made with rage. They're made with planning. With calm. With control. When I walked out of that house, I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I got into my car, started the engine, and drove straight to a diner 30 miles outside the city where no one knew my name. I ordered a coffee, opened my laptop, and started the real work. See, burning things down is easy. That's what most men do when they're hurt. Shout, break things, throw accusations into the wind like they're prayers. But that's not justice. That's release. I didn't want release. I wanted repayment. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she did slowly, with each passing day, until the life she'd built on lies turned to ash in her hands. I knew about Ryan now, her lover, her escape, the man she called just a friend from the gym. When she first mentioned him 2 years ago, I'd done my research. Ryan Caldwell, 38, divorced twice, local real estate broker with a taste for minimal effort and maximum flattery. No kids, 2 suspended licenses, and a tendency to live in rentals he couldn't afford. He wasn't in love with her. He was using her. And she, desperate for attention, mistook convenience for romance. I wasn't jealous. I was insulted. She risked our marriage for that, so I made him my next project. Started small. I reached out to a few property owners in Ryan's portfolio as a prospective buyer. I asked a lot of questions. I made complaints. I pointed out discrepancies in listings that wouldn't hold up in legal filings. I submitted anonymous concerns to the local real estate board. Nothing illegal, just pressure. A lot of it. Within 2 weeks, Ryan's license was under review. And Erin? She was suddenly dating a man too distracted to text back, too stressed to plan their little rendezvous. That tension? It seeped into their stolen moments like slow poison. Meanwhile, I started reshaping my own life. I hired a lawyer, a quiet, brutal woman named Maeve Ellison who didn't flinch when I showed her the photos and told her I wanted a divorce filed in silence, served at exactly the right moment. She asked what I wanted from the settlement. Everything I built. Everything I paid for. And peace. She nodded. It was time for Act 2. Erin moved into her friend's spare room. She called, texted, left voicemails where her voice cracked like old wood under snow. We can talk. It wasn't what you think. Please, just explain what you're doing. I didn't reply, because I wasn't doing this to talk. I was doing it to end things on my terms. She reached out to mutual friends, spinning her version, he's having some kind of episode, he's throwing everything away. But people know. Even if they pretend not to, they know when someone's hiding something. My silence made them uncomfortable. And discomfort breeds distance. She started to unravel. I saw it in the social media posts. Fewer smiles. More cryptic quotes. She was trying to control the narrative, but without a villain, her story didn't work. She needed me to be angry. To yell. To threaten. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I started talking to Claire. Yes, that Claire. Erin's best friend. The one she told everything to. The one she cried to after every business trip. The one who knew about Ryan before I did. The one who, despite all of that, still texted me on my birthday. Claire worked in insurance claims. Smart. Reserved. Never married. She and I had always had a strange kind of closeness, like two people observing the same tragedy from opposite sides of a glass wall. I reached out casually, asked if she wanted to grab coffee just to talk. She said yes. The conversation was natural. Warm. Familiar. But underneath it, there was tension. She knew what Erin had done. She didn't try to excuse it. She just said, quietly, you didn't deserve that. No one does, I replied. And something passed between us then, a mutual understanding. I didn't seduce Claire. I didn't need to. I just gave her the space to compare what she knew of me, who I was, who I remained, to what Erin had thrown away. It didn't take long. By the time Maeve was ready to serve the papers, Ryan's business was in the gutter. Erin was emotionally frayed. And Claire? Claire was leaning in.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience, but we really need your support, namely a subscription to the channel, which can make it possible to hire a professional voice actor and make the best content for you.
I asked her once, casually, did she ever say why? Claire shook her head. She said she was bored. Said you didn't look at her the same way anymore. I smiled. I didn't realize marriage was supposed to be a mirror. Claire looked at me carefully. Some people only feel alive when they're being admired. That night, she kissed me. And I let her. Not because I wanted revenge through sex, that's petty. No, I let her because I had started to feel something again. Control. Direction. And maybe a future that didn't have to carry Erin's shadow anymore. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The morning the divorce papers were served, I wasn't home. I timed it that way deliberately. Erin opened the door to find a courier standing with a neutral smile and a manila envelope. She signed her name, still in her robe, still assuming the world would give her time to prepare. It wouldn't. Claire told me she cried. Not because of guilt, but because the reality was now official. She wasn't leaving me on her own terms. I'd taken that from her. And people talk. Especially in quiet towns like ours where reputations are a form of currency. Erin had always been meticulous about appearances, charity luncheons, couples nights, yoga classes she barely attended but always posted about. But when you remove the man beside the image, the picture starts to blur. Friends notice the absence. They start asking questions. I didn't have to say a word. The rumors began to ferment on their own. At the same time, I stayed quiet. I didn't move out of the house. I didn't tell mutual friends my side. I just kept showing up to work, kept my composure, and declined all invitations politely. Silence became my signature. And in that silence, she started to lose control of the story. The whisper was always the same, she left him for someone else, didn't she? Then it turned darker. He was good to her. Bought her that Lexus last year. And the kitchen renovation? His money. And finally, did you hear she was seeing someone before the separation? Someone she met at the gym. Ryan. He wasn't handling the fallout well. His license had been suspended temporarily for procedural violations. His landlord was chasing rent. 2 clients filed formal complaints. I had nothing to do with any of that, at least nothing directly. I simply nudged the right people in the right direction and let Ryan's own shortcuts finish the job. As for Erin, she began to drift. The luxury she was used to dried up. The joint account was frozen. The credit cards were in my name. She had a small account of her own, the one she used to book those solo getaways, but it was hardly enough to sustain the lifestyle she believed she'd be rescued into. Her messages turned from defiant to pleading. Daniel, we need to talk. I think we made a mistake. Can we just figure this out? I read them, never replied. Not because I was unsure, but because I needed her to feel the emptiness. The vacuum of attention. Of control. What she never understood was that I was never interested in humiliation. I didn't want her destroyed. I wanted her displaced. I wanted her to exist in a world that no longer accommodated her illusions, where her backup plan burned the same way she left our marriage to smolder. And then came the final act, Claire. She and I started seeing each other more regularly. Dinners. Late conversations. Nothing rushed, nothing sleazy. There was no betrayal here, just a connection grown in the soil of truth. And what neither of us said out loud became increasingly clear with every passing day. We both deserved better than to be used as mirrors for someone else's insecurity. Claire didn't gloat. She didn't press for updates. But she knew Erin was unraveling. And she never once pulled back from me because of it. 3 months after the papers were served, Erin invited me for coffee. Neutral place. Public. I just want to talk, she said in the message. No accusations. No drama. I said yes. We met at a cafe we used to frequent. She showed up in oversized sunglasses and makeup just heavy enough to look effortless. The kind of detail I used to find charming. Now it just looked like armor. She sat down across from me and smiled like we were old friends. I wasn't expecting this, she said softly. You seem fine. I am. A beat of silence. Are you seeing someone? I didn't answer. I just sipped my coffee. I think about us a lot, she said. How things ended. I miss who we were. I nodded. You miss who I was when you didn't have to see me. Her face stiffened. That's not fair. It's honest. She reached out, hand shaking slightly. Maybe we weren't meant to end like this. I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone who had built her life on the illusion of control. She couldn't manipulate me anymore. She couldn't shape the story. And in that moment, I saw the fear behind her eyes. Because she realized I'd already moved on. Not with fury, but with precision. She left first. And when she did, I texted Claire. Dinner tonight? Absolutely, she replied. As I walked out of the cafe, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt resolved. Sometimes the deepest revenge isn't about what you destroy, but about what you rebuild without them. And I was rebuilding something real. I didn't block Erin's number. That might have been the first thing people assumed I'd do, sever ties, cut her off completely, disappear into a clean break. But I wanted her to see me. To watch in real time how the ground shifted under her feet. That was the design. Not vengeance in fire and fury, but erosion, slow, steady, inevitable. After the cafe meeting, she messaged 3 more times in the next week. First a joke, then a memory, then silence. I didn't reply to any of them. She was learning now the rules had changed. I still lived in the same house. The one she picked out. The one she once called our castle. But she was gone from every corner. Her closet? Empty. Her scent? Vanished. I kept only one picture of us, the one on the back porch from our 3rd anniversary, but I framed it differently. She was out of focus in the background, barely visible. I hung it in the garage. Claire came by more often. Not sneaking around. Not hiding. She wasn't someone I was using. She was someone who had stood quietly at the periphery, never asked for anything, never demanded loyalty I hadn't offered. And for that, she got something Erin never earned, trust. One night, Claire brought over dinner. She made it herself, lasagna from scratch, like she remembered I loved when Erin and I first started dating. We sat at the same table I once spent hours alone at, wondering where my wife really was. Only this time, the silence between bites felt easy. She didn't ask for updates about Erin. She didn't gloat. And maybe that's what made me respect her more than anyone. She wasn't part of the revenge. She was part of what came after. Still, I needed to finish what I started. 2 weeks later, I filed a claim for joint asset reevaluation. Turns out Erin had made a number of large purchases during our marriage under my name: luxury clothing, weekend trips she claimed were business-related, and the infamous gym membership that led to her affair. I hired a forensic accountant, and every cent she spent beyond our agreed budget was itemized. She called the day the legal notice arrived. I answered, "Daniel, what is this?" Her voice cracked. "You're suing me? I'm holding you accountable." Her breath stuttered. We agreed. We weren't going to fight dirty. "I never fought at all," I said. "You did that the moment you lied your way through our marriage. You don't need the money. You didn't need to cheat." Silence. Then quietly, "I didn't think you'd actually go through with this." "I know. That's always been the problem." She didn't reply. I didn't hang up. "You once said we were a team," I continued. "That we'd build something together." I held up my end. "You went shopping for an exit. Now you'll pay the difference." It wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about the lie of innocence she wore like perfume, thick and sweet, masking rot underneath. But I wasn't finished yet. 3 days later, I submitted a formal complaint to Ryan's professional board. I had evidence. Screenshots. Texts she accidentally sent to our shared iCloud when she first started seeing him. There were timeline inconsistencies. Improper client relationships. A beach weekend booked under both their names during the same month he filed for hardship leave from the clinic. The board opened a review. He was suspended indefinitely pending investigation. When the news broke, Erin messaged me one last time. "Why are you doing this?" I stared at the message. Not angry. Not gloating. Just certain. I typed back, "Because I gave you everything. And you sold it off piece by piece." I didn't hear from her again. Claire and I continued our quiet life. I didn't post about us. I didn't flaunt anything. I just existed in the light she helped me find again. But word got around. People who used to avoid me in the grocery store now nodded. Some even stopped to ask how I was holding up. The whispers about Erin grew colder. Left a good man. Cheated with a guy who can't even keep his license. She burned down her own house. And eventually, Erin left town. Packed up what little was left of her pride and moved 2 states over. I heard she was renting a small apartment. Nothing like the 4-bedroom home she once filled with throw pillows and fake smiles. One evening, Claire and I sat on the porch, same place that old picture was taken. She leaned against me, wineglass in hand. "You ever think about her?" she asked gently. "Sometimes," I admitted. "And?" I took a sip, let the taste settle. "I think about how some people mistake kindness for weakness. And how sometimes the quietest ones are the ones you really shouldn't cross." Claire smiled. "You're not quiet anymore." "No," I said. "I'm not." 2 years passed. 2 entire rotations of holidays, birthdays, anniversaries that no longer applied. I didn't mark them on the calendar. I didn't count the time since she left. But when I sat in the kitchen one morning, pouring coffee into the same chipped mug she once bought for my birthday, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not the kind of anger that burns and needs somewhere to go. No, mine had already gone somewhere. It had been spent in silence, in strategy, in slow-moving justice that didn't need an audience or applause. Claire and I didn't get married. We weren't in a hurry. Love after devastation is cautious, deliberate. She never asked me to forget Erin, she just asked me to be honest. And I was. Honest about the nights I still woke up thinking I heard Erin's voice in the other room. Honest about the scars I wore like invisible tattoos across my mind. Then, on a random Thursday in March, a letter came. No return address. Just my name, written in a handwriting I hadn't seen in years. It was from Erin. Inside was a single sheet. Folded carefully. No perfume, no lipstick smudges. Just words. "I saw the article about your foundation. The work you're doing with veterans. With trauma survivors. It's good. It suits you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I'm asking for it. I just wanted to say one thing. You were the best man I ever knew. I ruined everything because I thought I was owed something more than honesty. And you gave me everything except the drama I thought I needed. You were calm. Reliable. Whole. I hope you stay that way." I sat with it for a long time. Not angry. Not moved. Just still. Then I filed it away. With the divorce papers. The forensic accounting reports. The ethics board's findings. All of it. One drawer, locked. My version of a gravestone. Months later, I got a call from a mutual friend. Someone I hadn't spoken to since the neighborhood cookouts. "You hear about Erin?" he asked, not unkindly. I hadn't. "She's working at a nonprofit now. Outreach for women rebuilding after infidelity." "Funny, huh?" I didn't laugh. "It's something at least," I said. "People change when the mirror won't look away." I didn't care where she ended up. I didn't wish her well or ill. That was the truth. What mattered more was what she didn't know. She didn't know that the rental she and her friends stayed at for those solo weekends had been quietly purchased by me under a trust. She didn't know it had become a weekend retreat for young couples recovering from betrayal. A place where people were taught what healthy looked like. She didn't know that the job Ryan lost spiraled into a chain reaction, not because I exposed him, but because the very clients he manipulated stopped trusting him. His name was mud in every clinic from Seattle to San Diego. And she definitely didn't know that Claire had once been approached by Aaron of all people during a fundraiser. I hope he treats you better than I did, Aaron had said. Claire had only smiled. Not cruel. Not smug. Just patient. He treats me exactly how I deserve. That night, Claire told me about it. I didn't flinch. Didn't ask for details. I just kissed her forehead and said, that's closure. And it was. The last part of my revenge wasn't explosive. It wasn't a public takedown or a courtroom victory. It was something quieter. More devastating. I lived. I built something out of the wreckage. And I did it without needing her approval,
What do you think
her
of the
apology,
story?
or her absence.
Write in the comments.
She walked away from me because she thought I was too boring. Too predictable. Too safe. Turns out, safety was the only thing that ever mattered.